Most people approach their desires like a man trying to push a river upstream. They exert tremendous effort. They exhaust themselves in futile struggle. And then they wonder why their dreams remain elusive. But I tell you tonight, the river of creation flows naturally toward your good when you align yourself with its current. The moment you cease to resist, the moment you truly relax into the knowing of your wish fulfilled, that very moment the entire universe conspires to bring your desire into manifestation. Let me share with you what I mean by relaxation in its truest sense. I do not speak of mere physical relaxation, though that has its place. I speak of that deep, profound relaxation of the mind that comes when you stop trying to figure out how your desire will come to pass. I speak of the relaxation that comes when you stop monitoring the outer world for signs of change. I speak of the relaxation that emerges when you finally understand that creation is finished, that everything you could ever want already exists in the invisible realm of imagination, waiting only for your recognition and acceptance. When I was a young man in Barbados, I had a burning desire to come to America. Like most people, I began by trying to find the way. I searched for opportunities. I made plans. I worried about money and visas and all the seeming obstacles that stood between me and my dream. The harder I tried, the more elusive the path became. Then one day, an old man in my village shared with me a truth that changed everything. He said, "Neville, stop trying to go to America and instead go to America in your imagination. Live there, feel yourself there, make it so real that your physical senses cannot distinguish between your imaginal experience and physical reality." That night, I did exactly as he suggested. I imagined myself in New York City. I felt the excitement of walking down Broadway. I smelled the autumn air. I heard the sounds of the great metropolis. I felt the satisfaction of having achieved my dream. But here is the crucial point. I did not imagine these things with strain or effort. I simply relaxed into the experience, allowed myself to be there completely. And then I fell asleep in that beautiful assumption. Within months, through a series of events that seemed miraculous at the time, but which I now understand to be the natural unfolding of an imaginal act, I found myself living in New York City. This is what I mean when I say relax and allow. You do not create your good through force. You do not manifest your desires through struggle. You create through the gentle, natural assumption of the state of your wish fulfilled, and then you allow that assumption to harden into fact through repetition and faith. But let me address something that troubles many of you. You say, "Neville, my desire seems impossible. The doctors have given their verdict. The bank account shows zero. The person I love is married to another. How can I relax when everything in my world contradicts my desire?" My friends, this is precisely when relaxation becomes most important, for it is in the face of seeming impossibility that the power of imagination shines brightest. I want you to understand something fundamental about the nature of reality. What you call the impossible is only impossible from the limited perspective of your current state of consciousness, from the perspective of God. And I remind you that God and human imagination are one. Nothing is impossible. The same power that spoke life into existence, that formed the worlds, that raised the dead, that power dwells in you as your very imagination. When you align with this power, through relaxed assumption, even the impossible becomes inevitable. I remember a woman who came to me many years ago. She was well past the age when doctors said she could conceive a child. Yet she desired nothing more than to become a mother. The medical profession had pronounced their verdict impossible. Her family had tried to console her, impossible. Society had its opinion, impossible. But I asked her a simple question: can you imagine yourself holding your own baby in your arms? She said yes. I told her, then every night as you fall asleep, hold that baby. Feel its weight in your arms. Smell its sweet scent. Hear its gentle breathing. Make it so real that you can feel its tiny heartbeat against your chest. And do this not with strain, not with desperation, but with the gentle knowing that this is already yours in the realm of imagination. She followed this instruction faithfully. And I want you to note something important. She did not struggle to make it happen. She did not exhaust herself trying to conceive. She simply relaxed into the beautiful assumption that she was already a mother and allowed that assumption to saturate her consciousness. Within the year, she held her healthy baby in her arms. And the same doctors who had pronounced it impossible were calling it a miracle. But here is what I want you to understand. It was not a miracle in the sense of something supernatural occurring. It was the perfectly natural result of living from the end, of assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and of relaxing into that assumption until it became her dominant state of consciousness. This brings me to a crucial point about allowance. When I say allow, I do not mean passive waiting. I do not mean sitting idle hoping something will happen. True allowance is an active state of consciousness. It is the state in which you have so completely assumed your desire fulfilled that you are allowing it to manifest in ways that may surprise and delight you, in ways that your limited human reasoning could never have devised. Most people fail in their manifestations because they not only want their desire, they want it to come in a specific way. They want the promotion, but only if it comes through their current company. They want the money, but only if it comes through their present job. They want the relationship, but only if it unfolds according to their predetermined script. My friends, this is not allowance. This is limitation. This is trying to be God's advisor, telling infinite intelligence how to arrange the circumstances of your good. True allowance means that you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, and then you stay alert and receptive to the ways in which it may manifest. You do not limit the channels through which your good may come. You do not insist that it happen in any particular way or through any specific person. You simply live in the consciousness of having it, and you allow the creative medium of imagination to bring it into being through whatever means serve your highest good. I once knew a man who desired to own a beautiful home by the sea. He had a very specific house in mind, one he had seen advertised but could never afford. Night after night he would imagine himself in that exact house, but always with the underlying worry about how he could possibly obtain it. He was trying to be both the one who imagines and the one who figures out how the imagination will be fulfilled. This divided consciousness kept his desire at bay. One day, I suggested to him that he change his approach. Instead of imagining that specific house, I advised him to imagine the feeling of living by the sea in a beautiful home. I told him to feel the ocean breeze, to hear the waves, to smell the salt air, to feel the deep satisfaction of owning such a home, but to release all concern about which house it would be or how it would come to him. I told him to relax completely into the feeling and to allow infinite intelligence to select the perfect home and arrange the perfect means of acquisition. Within 3 months, he inherited a magnificent seaside property from a relative he barely knew, a relative who had remembered him in her will after meeting him just once at a family gathering years earlier. The house was far more beautiful than the one he had originally desired, and it came to him free and clear. This is the power of relaxation and allowance working together. Now let me address the doubts that are arising in some of your minds. You are thinking, but Neville, what if I relax and allow and nothing happens? What if I imagine faithfully and my desire never manifests? My friends, this question reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of the law. The law of assumption is not a bargain you make with the universe. It is not a technique you perform in exchange for your desires. It is a law as reliable and consistent as the law of gravity. When you drop an object, you do not wonder if it will fall. You know it will fall because you understand the law of gravity. In the same way, when you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and persist in that assumption, you should know with the same certainty that it must manifest because you understand the law of assumption. The question is not whether it will manifest. The question is only when and how. And these details are not your concern. Your only concern is to maintain the feeling of having your desire until it hardens into fact. But I understand your impatience. I understand that when you desire something deeply, waiting can feel unbearable. This is why relaxation is so crucial. When you are truly relaxed in your assumption, waiting does not feel like waiting. It feels like natural expectation, like the natural confidence that comes after you have planted a seed. and you know it will grow. You do not dig up the seed every day to check its progress. You water it, you give it sunlight, and you trust the natural process of growth. Your imaginal act is like planting a seed in the soil of consciousness. Once planted through assumption, once watered through repetition, once warmed by the sun of faith, it must grow. It must manifest. This is law, not hope. But just as you would not constantly disturb a growing seed, you must not constantly disturb your assumption with doubt, with impatience, with looking for signs in the outer world. This brings me to perhaps the most important aspect of relaxation in manifestation, the relaxation of your grip on the outer world as your source of evidence. Most people live in a state of constant reaction to their circumstances. If the bank account is low, they feel poor. If the body shows symptoms, they feel sick. If the person they love is absent, they feel unloved. They are allowing the outer world to dictate their inner state. And this is precisely backwards. The outer world is not the cause of your experience. It is the effect. It is the shadow cast by your consciousness, the reflection of your dominant assumptions, the crystallization of your habitual thoughts and feelings. When you understand this, you realize that trying to change the outer world without first changing consciousness is like trying to change your reflection in the mirror without changing yourself. It cannot be done. True relaxation comes when you stop giving power to circumstances and start giving power to imagination. It comes when you stop reacting to what is and start responding from what you want to be. It comes when you realize that no matter what appears in your world, you have the power to assume something different, and through that assumption to change what appears. I remember a man who came to me completely despondent about his financial situation. He had lost his job. His savings were depleted, and creditors were demanding payment. Everything in his outer world was screaming poverty, limitation, and failure. He wanted to know how he could possibly relax and assume abundance when every circumstance contradicted such an assumption. I explained to him that this was exactly when assumption becomes most powerful. I told him that anyone can assume abundance when their bank account is full. That requires no faith, no imagination, no understanding of the law. But to assume abundance in the face of apparent poverty, to feel wealthy when the outer world suggests otherwise, this is to exercise the godlike power of imagination that can transform any situation. I instructed him to completely ignore his circumstances for a period of time each day. During his imaginal sessions, he was to feel himself as a wealthy man, not trying to become wealthy, not hoping to become wealthy, but actually feeling wealthy right now. I told him to imagine his bank account filled with money, to feel the security and freedom that wealth provides, to assume the confidence and generosity of a truly wealthy man. But here is the key. I told him to do this with complete relaxation, without strain, without desperation. I told him to enter into these imaginings as easily as he would enter into a daydream, to make them feel natural and normal, to relax into the role of a wealthy man as easily as an actor relaxing into a character. Within weeks, opportunities began to appear. Not just one opportunity, but multiple streams of abundance that flowed into his experience with increasing momentum. A business partnership that had seemed dead was suddenly revived. An old investment that he had written off unexpectedly paid dividends. A skill he possessed but had never monetized suddenly found a lucrative market. Within months, he had not only recovered his former position, but had exceeded it many times over. The key was relaxation. Had he approached his imaginal work with desperation, with need, with the energy of lack, he would have perpetuated his experience of poverty. But because he relaxed into the feeling of abundance, because he allowed himself to truly feel wealthy without strain or effort, he impressed his subconscious mind with the conviction of abundance, and his outer world had no choice but to conform. This is why I emphasize again and again the importance of feeling in manifestation. You do not manifest what you think about. You manifest what you feel to be true. And true feeling cannot be forced. It must be allowed. It must be entered into with the same naturalness with which you enter into any state of being. Think about it this way: when you are happy, you do not have to try to be happy. Happiness is simply your natural state in that moment. When you are confident, you do not have to work at being confident. Confidence is simply how you feel. In the same way, when you assume your wish fulfilled, you should not have to work at feeling fulfilled. The feeling should arise naturally from your assumption, and you should relax into it as easily as you relax into any natural feeling. But what happens when the feeling does not come easily? What happens when you try to assume your wish fulfilled, but you feel nothing, or worse, you feel the opposite of what you are trying to assume? This is where most people give up, thinking they are not capable of manifestation. But I tell you, this is simply a matter of practice and persistence, combined with deep relaxation. You see, your current feelings are the result of long-established habits of thought and assumption. You have trained yourself to feel a certain way in response to certain circumstances. You have practiced certain emotional states until they have become automatic. To change these habitual responses requires the same gentle persistence with which you would train a child to develop any new skill. If you have been in the habit of feeling poor, you cannot expect to assume abundance and immediately feel wealthy. If you have been in the habit of feeling unloved, you cannot expect to assume love and immediately feel cherished. But you can begin to practice these new feelings in your imagination, gently and without force, allowing them to grow stronger through repetition. Here's a technique that I have found invaluable for developing the feeling of your wish fulfilled when it does not come naturally. Instead of trying to feel the whole of your desire at once, begin with just a fragment of the feeling. If you want to feel wealthy but can only access a small sense of security, work with that small sense. If you want to feel love but can only access a moment of appreciation, work with that moment. Take that small, genuine feeling and gently expand it. Not through force, not through effort, but through relaxation and allowance. Imagine that feeling growing naturally like a flower opening to the sun. Allow it to fill you gradually, without rush, without strain. This gentle approach honors the natural rhythm of consciousness and allows new feelings to establish themselves without resistance from the old patterns. I knew a woman who had been alone for many years and deeply desired a loving relationship. Every time she tried to imagine herself loved, she would immediately feel the contradiction of her aloneness and become discouraged. I suggested that instead of trying to imagine a complete relationship, she begin by simply imagining a moment of genuine affection, perhaps remembering a time when she felt truly appreciated, or imagining a simple act of kindness directed toward her. Starting with just that small, authentic feeling of being cared for, she would relax into it and allow it to expand naturally. Day by day, she built upon this foundation, adding layers of feeling, security, companionship, joy, deep love, but always building from genuine feeling rather than trying to force an emotional state that felt foreign to her consciousness. Through this gentle, relaxed approach, she gradually established a new baseline of feeling loved and loving. And as her inner state changed, her outer world began to reflect this change. She became more attractive to others, more open to connection, more confident in social situations. Within a year, she was in a beautiful, loving relationship that exceeded even her original dreams. The key was that she allowed the feeling to develop naturally rather than trying to force it into being. She worked with her consciousness rather than against it, building new patterns of assumption on a foundation of authentic feeling rather than trying to impose alien emotions upon herself. This brings me to another crucial aspect of allowance, allowing yourself to be imperfect in your practice. So many people abandon their efforts at manifestation because they cannot maintain their desired state consistently. They assume their wish fulfilled for a few hours or days, then doubt creeps in, or old habits reassert themselves, and they conclude that they are failures at manifestation. My friends, consciousness is not a light switch that you turn on once and leave illuminated forever. Consciousness is more like a muscle that grows stronger through use, a skill that develops through practice, a garden that flourishes through consistent tending. You would not plant a garden and then abandon it because the weeds grew back after your first day of cultivation. You would patiently return, again and again, removing the weeds and nurturing the desired plants until they grew strong enough to flourish on their own. Your new assumptions are like tender young plants in the garden of consciousness. They need time to develop strong roots. They need repeated attention and care. They need protection from the weeds of doubt and the storms of contradiction. But with patient, relaxed persistence, they will grow strong and eventually dominate your consciousness so completely that the old, unwanted patterns can find no soil in which to grow. I want you to understand that every time you return to your desired assumption, even after periods of doubt or reversal, you are strengthening it. Every time you choose to feel your wish fulfilled, even when circumstances suggest otherwise, you are impressing your subconscious mind more deeply. Every time you relax into the state of having your desire, you are making that state more natural, more normal, more automatic. Do not be discouraged by temporary lapses. Do not judge yourself for moments of doubt. These are natural parts of the process of consciousness transformation. Instead, gently return to your assumption. Relax into it once again and allow it to grow stronger through your persistence. I am reminded of a young man who desperately wanted to become a successful musician, but was constantly plagued by doubts about his ability. He would practice his assumption of success for several days, feeling confident and accomplished, but then he would hear another musician's performance and immediately sink into feelings of inadequacy and impossibility. For months, this cycle continued: assumption, doubt, discouragement, then a return to assumption. He came to me wondering if he should give up, thinking that his inability to maintain consistent faith meant he was not meant to succeed. I explained to him that this fluctuation was not a sign of failure, but a sign of growth, like the growing pains that accompany physical development. I told him that each time he returned to his assumption of success, despite the doubts, he was actually strengthening his faith muscle. Each time he chose to feel successful, despite evidence to the contrary, he was impressing his subconscious mind more deeply with the pattern of success. The doubts were not obstacles to his manifestation. They were opportunities to demonstrate his commitment to his new identity. I advised him to be gentle with himself during the doubtful periods, to not fight the doubts, but simply to not feed them with attention. Instead, when doubts arose, he should relax and gently return to his assumption, the way a parent might gently redirect a wandering child without anger or frustration. This approach transformed his entire experience. Instead of seeing his doubts as evidence of dividend, he began to see them as opportunities for practice. Instead of being discouraged by his fluctuations, he became patient with his process. And this relaxed, accepting attitude actually accelerated his progress. Within 2 years, he was performing professionally, earning substantial income from his music, and living the successful artistic life he had imagined. The relaxation I speak of extends beyond your relationship with your desires to your relationship with the process itself. You must relax your grip on how quickly things should happen, on what signs you should see, on what form your manifestation should take. You must allow the infinite intelligence within you to orchestrate the perfect unfolding of your good in the perfect timing and in the perfect way. I often think of manifestation like pregnancy. When a woman conceives, she does not wake up each morning wondering if she's still pregnant. She does not demand daily evidence of the baby's growth. She trusts the natural process. She cares for herself and the developing child, and she allows the pregnancy to unfold in its natural timing. She may experience moments of concern or impatience, but overall she rests in the confidence that birth will come at the right time. Your imaginal conception should be approached with the same natural confidence. Once you have impressed your subconscious mind with your desire, once you have felt it real,